Okay, with that being said, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thanks very much. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of East Hampton. This is the meeting of November 1st, 2023. We have a public hearing on, and then we have a few matters on for site plan review, and a couple of matters on our regular meeting, a couple of resolutions, and some boards of review. We're going to mix up the order from that which appears on the agenda that was published because we want to get some people out earlier who are on contract with the town. We'll start with the Landing Artist Studio public hearing. It is 6:30, is it not?
It is.
So then we can indeed go forward.
Okay.
Ed, if you'll read it in.
Take notice that a public hearing will be held in the before the East Hampton Town Planning Board at the Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Wednesday, November 1st, 2023 at 6:30 p.m., or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of a Landing Artist Studio approval pursuant Article 11 of Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code to construct a 30-foot by 20-foot personal artist studio. The property is currently improved with an existing one-story residence with a deck, an existing swimming pool with an attached brick patio and retaining wall. The property contains 33,956 square feet, 0.780 acres, and is located at 138 Old House Landing Road, East Hampton, and is situate in a B Residence Harbor Protection Overlay District, HPOD, zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton, and is identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel 300-56-2-27. A survey prepared by George Walbridge Surveyors, PC, dated and revised July 10th, 2023, and a studio plan elevations prepared by Sean F. Leonard, Architect, PC, dated July 14th, 2023, are available for inspection at the Planning Board Office, Suite 103, 300 Panago Place, East Hampton, New York. The public hearing will be held live and in person by the Planning Board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing, and will be televised on local TV, LTV Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, www.ltveh.org. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person or by agent or by attorney or by call-in to the live stream or by written comment addressed to the Planning Board, 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937. Comments may also be submitted to the Planning Board by email to planningboard@ehamptonny.gov. All comments must be received by the Planning Board by the date and time of this public hearing. Dated October 4th, 2023, Samuel Kramer, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ed. Nancy, do we have jurisdiction?
Yes, we do. I reviewed the affidavit of service and posting, and it appears that it was properly noticed, and you therefore have jurisdiction.
Very good. Thank you. Tina, would you like to give us a little background?
Sure, I have the location of the property up on the screen. It's located in East Hampton, so the northwest of 3 Mile Harbor on New Gardeners Bay. I'm going to put on the survey. The proposed artist studio is located within an already cleared area. That was one of the comments that the planning board made during the review, and complies with the maximum allowed size of the studio per the town code at 600 square feet. Complies with all zoning setbacks. And the last bit to be completed is the covenants and restrictions, the artist studio declaration. Otherwise, the application was determined to complete October 4th, 2023.
Thanks very much. The way this works is if any members of the public wish to be heard, you'll step up. Please give us your name, spell your last name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes after everybody in the room who's wanted to address the board has had an opportunity to do that. Then we will go to the folks who might be waiting to speak on the telephone. And after they've had an opportunity to speak, if anyone who has spoken already wishes to speak again, they'll be given one more 3-minute segment. So with that, are there any members of the public present here who would like to be heard with respect to this application? Okay, in that case, Matt, how, do we have anyone queued up on the telephone who wants to be heard with respect to the application?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
Very good. In that case, Ed, if you'd like to make a motion,
Yeah, motion to close the public hearing.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Was that both Lou, and I should have mentioned that member Cortese and member Parsons are joining us virtually. I heard one. Did I hear the other?
Aye, sorry, I was muted.
2 ayes. Okay, very good. All right, the public hearing is closed, 7-0. Thank you very much. That's it. That's it. You heard the magic word. Thank you. Have a good night. Likewise. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. We're going to do one quick matter on the regular meeting, and that's the approval on the 395 Pantago Road subdivision. Ian, if you could read that one in.
In the matter of the application of 395 Panago Road preliminary subdivision for conditional final subdivision approval, I've read the resolution. What's that?
Changed it?
There is a change.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll start over. In the matter of the application of 395 Panago Road, final subdivision for conditional final approval, I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed, 7-0. Okay. Next, we're going to go to, slightly out of order, we're going to do the Chiarillo matter. And we have our consultant,
Up, but thank
I
you.
apologize. Oh, well, yes, thank you. You're welcome. You can now go home.
Sleep well.
Mission accomplished. Okay. We'd like to welcome Lisa Rickmers. She is a consultant, what do we call this? Consulting planner or planning consultant?
Planning consultant works, I
Planning
think,
consultant,
right?
okay, so Lisa is going to be working with on the Chiarillo matter, and I suspect on other matters going forward. Is the applicant here on Chiarillo? Very good, okay, welcome. Okay, so after we hear from the planning consultant, we will then give you an opportunity to be heard, and then the board will have its conversation. Okay.
Okay,
All right,
good
Lisa, you're on.
thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Rickmers. I'm a senior environmental planner at H2M Architects and Engineers. This application before you is a site plan application for the proposed development of a vacant lot shown here on the screen. The subject property is located at 21 Good Friend Drive and is part of the Good Friend Drive subdivision. The lot is zoned commercial industrial and water recharge overlay. The proposed use, the applicant proposes to develop the lot with 2 buildings. One is proposed to contain a warehouse use. The second building is proposed to contain a metal workshop, best classified as service commercial under the code. Before I can share my screen with the, if the.
Yep, I stopped sharing.
Okay, excellent. Let me. So this survey shows the subject property with the proposed structures on it. The warehouse use is a permitted use in the CI zone. Service commercial is permitted by special permit. The lot, as you can see, is a flag lot with a long access driveway. According to the restrictions set in the subdivision, the driveway serves as an access path, has an easement for an access for the neighboring lot, though currently that lot is already developed with a different access path. Additionally, a 50-foot scenic easement exists. It is present along the south property line. No structure may be placed within 10 foot of that said easement. A number of issues were identified in the that the planning board may want to pay attention to in regards to this application. One is in regard to the truck access and loading pathway. I will share a slightly different image here. The code requires one truck loading spot and none is provided on the site plan. The path shown for access for a 30-foot box truck requires turnaround, which utilizes one of the required parking spaces. In addition, there is no dumpster shown on the site, so it's worth the planning board's consideration as to whether a dumpster would be required for a metal workshop, and if an access path for said dumpster and dumpster removal would be required. Additionally, this property is in the groundwater management zone B and the water recharge overlay. As it's intended for commercial industrial use, the planning board should consider if additional information is needed regarding site operations, such as the potential storage of hazardous materials on site, so that the board may assess its compliance with the planning board's water management policy. There was a discrepancy in the lot coverage calculation, which is also a bit confusing. I'll walk you through that issue. The issue comes into play largely because of this access easement. The applicant calculated the total lot coverage using the access easement as part of the total lot size, but excluding it from the covered area. As it is an access easement, the planning department feels the most appropriate calculation would exclude the access drive from both the lot coverage and the total lot area. This would result in a lot coverage in the current design that exceeds the maximum allowable coverage by 1.3%. It's suggested that the applicant may wish to consider the site design to perhaps it's close enough that perhaps there's a way to redesign this to come into compliance rather than requiring a variance for this excess of coverage. The building coverage itself is below the permissible level, and the clearing total is proposed to be at 50%, which is the maximum permitted in the water recharge overlay district. A couple of final issues to note. One is ADA accessibility. The fire marshal reviewed the application and noted that the application does not meet ADA accessibility requirements, which should be considered for these buildings. And a number of site plan details are still required to complete the application, and a clarification of the gross floor area is required, as the gross floor area provided on the application form appears to only calculate first floor, whereas both buildings have a portion of the building has a second story as well. So in summary, it's a highly encumbered property due to the access easement, the scenic easement, the 10-foot setback, and the coverage limitations. So these factors are things that the planning board may wish to consider. Do you have any questions for me?
Not, well, does any board member have any question
No.
for Lisa? No? Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that comprehensive report. The applicant.
Good evening, board members. I'm Alice Cooley. Can you hear me?
I think you need to move the mic a little bit.
Is this directional? How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm Alice Cooley on behalf of VB Chiarello, the owner of the premises at 21 Good Friend Drive. The owners of VB Chiarello are Michael and Megan Chiarello, its members. Megan and Michael purchased this site to use it to support both of their existing businesses. Their family lives full-time in Sag Harbor, and they've operated their respective businesses on the East End for over 15 years. Megan owns 4 retail locations and will utilize the proposed warehouse building for storage of her retail stores and ship packages for her online business. Michael is a custom metal fabricator, also based on the East End. His projects range from residential railings, staircases, and entrance gates to smaller, more intricate work such as furniture and works of art, which we did initially believe was consistent with the custom workshop use that we applied for, but we have applied for the special permit for service commercial. I'd like to note that the big difference between Michael's business and that of many other service commercial uses is that he'll not have many service trucks and vehicles entering and exiting the site. Since it's at the end of Good Friend Drive and that's where the Ross School is, we just wanted to be clear that this is not going to generate a lot of traffic and it's not highly impactful in that way. He and his employees, they arrive for work each day and then they leave. They receive materials once a week at the end of the day and they deliver pieces at the end of the day. There are no hazardous materials or substances on site. The metal pieces that require hazardous finishes are shipped to and completed by subcontractors, so he doesn't do any of that work at the site. With regard to the trash enclosure, there is actually a trash enclosure shown, but we're happy to include an additional dumpster on the plan. We do note that both of these businesses generate very little garbage. Megan's business is committed to reducing its carbon footprint, so she always reuses her boxes and packaging. Michael delivers his scrap metal to the scrap yard in Riverhead, so he generates no waste. With regard to the coverage, there was an error in this calculation, and we'll do our best to correct it and conform to the coverage limitation, hopefully not need a variance. And with regard to the truck access path, we'll submit a new truck plan and make the remaining site plan revisions raised by the memo. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Very good. Okay, Randy, this one is yours. Think you may be muted. Is he muted?
Give him a second.
Okay.
There you go. Now you're not.
Yeah, so I think the planning consultant and planning department did a good job on the memo. And I think this is an appropriate location for this type of use. So it's really kind of fine tuning here. A couple of things in minor, I would call them sort of typo type things in the memo. The chart doesn't say that the chart says that this property is not in the Suffolk special groundwater protection area or the Pine Barrens. I think in the narrative it does, but I'm just mentioning it because I know we're having a new working relationship. So in that chart, the block, the SGPA and Pine Barrens, I think should be yeses. One other thing about, typically we would use the USDA soil survey soil types. So I just mentioned that to Lisa. Again, it's just sort of to fine tune our working relationship. As far as, I think the planning board generally would want the groundwater protection policy regarding the design and the epoxy covering on the basements in both of these buildings, pretty much regardless of what the current use is, just so that they're ready for any future use, or if there is any use by the warehouse or the or the metal shop. You know, this is about the most sensitive, most important groundwater recharge area in the town, and anything we can do to prevent contamination of the aquifer here, I think we want to do. So I would say to the board, maybe we should consider just having both basements built to the groundwater protection standard. The dumpster, I think that's pretty much up to kind of go with the planning department there. I don't think we need 2 dumpsters on the site, but I didn't see it on the survey either. I wondered if you're going to have an emergency backup generator for any purpose, and if so, we should get that on the site plan as well. I mentioned to Tina, I don't know if this is close enough to the airport to require FAA, but we might want to check that. I agree with the department about the truck space. We need to have a truck space that can handle the steel deliveries and the clothing, and you may want to think about future uses too. That a usable truck space that has circulation on the site, that we can see that a truck can circulate on the site without using the other spaces or the handicap spaces. These are pretty much in the questions at the end of the memo. I agree with the department about just the building sizes, so you don't need a variance as far as coverage. There was mention in the memo about that unless I misread it, that this is an archaeologically sensitive area. That's, I guess, a question for Lisa.
Lisa?
Lisa?
Yes, sorry, I'm just unmuting myself here. Yes, I believe this in the EAF mapper is listed as an archaeologically sensitive area.
Okay, so normally we would do a phase 1 if, I don't know what the policy's been on the other parcels in Good Friend Drive, phase 2, but if it isn't a sensitive area, normally we do a phase 1 as part of the secret review. And I did have that question about the metal and the finishes. And again, what the department said, are there any either fuels? I don't know what type of welding is being done. Is it arc welding, or are there torches? What kind of fuel are you using? Are you going to just have acetylene tanks, or goes to the whole thing about, is there any storage of hazardous materials, basically, is what the memo has raised. And maybe we need a narrative about the maybe both of the businesses, but more so the metalworking, kind of cradle to grave, what's going on, and any generation of any type of contaminant that could get down into the aquifer. We'd want to try to look ahead and prevent that. Okay, that's all I got.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I agree about the metal work. It's kind of a mystery, and it does have potential implications that are, even if it weren't a groundwater area that we have to worry about, which it is, we'd like to know what kind of, I don't know, waste product or, side effects it has.
Sure, we can submit that. It's surprisingly clean, I've learned recently, but I didn't know a few days ago, that's for sure.
Okay, all right. Any other members of the board? Anyone? No?
No.
Okay. Lou, did you have anything on it?
No, Sam, thank you.
Very good. All right. I'll run through the questions then. Does the board concur that the use is service commercial as opposed to custom workshop?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Thank you. Should the applicant describe any potentially hazardous substances on site, and if present, submit plans that demonstrate compliance with the planning board groundwater protection policy? Sure. Yes.
yeah, Sam, I would just edit that a little bit and to see what the board thinks, but I think we want basements to comply with the groundwater protection policy without any more, we don't need any more information than that they're a CI use in a groundwater protection area. But see if the board agrees with that. And, if they ever sell or switch the use in there, you don't want to go back in later to convert the basement to meet those specs.
Are you suggesting that as a general policy or specific to this application? It sounds like you're the former.
I think we generally, if we get a commercial industrial building, a new building in these areas, we generally ask for the basement to meet those specs. Even if the current use is not particularly doesn't use a lot of hazardous materials. It's there's also the heat, whatever the heating fuel in the building is. It's just such a sensitive area.
How does the board feel about that? Agree?
I agree. Does the applicant object to that, or?
I think the epoxy floor is good.
Yeah, I think so.
I would have to run it by them, of course, but I don't think they have an objection.
I think what Randy's saying makes sense, because once we approve the use, we wouldn't see it again
Goes away from us.
if a new tenant went in there.
I understand.
And I don't think it's super onerous. It's just a matter of how the floor is pitched and the epoxy. If you don't do it now, I think it's a lot harder to do later, so.
Is this only for a basement, or is there going to be basements in this building? Or is it just for like ground floor? Does it make a difference?
It's usually ground floor.
Basements.
Well,
Okay.
these both have, I think, unfinished basements, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, usually any bad stuff drips down to the basement before it goes into the ground. But I think these have generally been basement specs. Unless there is no basement, in which case it would be a first floor spec.
Yeah, no, one way or the other, it does protect the groundwater. It's a good idea. So we'll include it in the letter, and if it creates some kind of major problem, you'll let us know next time around. But I suspect it shouldn't. All right. Should the applicant provide a dumpster with access path to the service commercial operation? And I think the applicant said yes to that?
There is one
There is one, okay.
between the buildings, but we can revisit the size if you like, but it is there. Did you see it, Tina?
So I don't think so. So it's very tight.
Is it mapped
I
out?
think that was the concern.
Yeah.
It just looks undersized for.
So we could certainly,
Yeah.
we can certainly expand the footprint of that.
Yeah, you don't want it.
And Tina, you wanted to show the access to it as well? And that works?
Yeah, I mean, you just need to make sure that it's in a place that a truck can get to, I mean, right now, it looks like it is, but if it gets revised, you just want to make sure that the access is there.
Would both businesses be using the same dumpster?
Correct.
Because you're pretty well in the woods over there. So, you don't want to be encouraging it to be a feeding area, let's put it that way. Okay, so you'll look into that.
Absolutely.
First, okay. All right, should the applicant revise the truck access path so as not to encumber required parking?
Yes.
That's important, especially to the extent that it impacts the ADA parking.
Certainly.
So, okay. Should the applicant revise their coverage approach to comply with the manner presented above and seek ways to reduce coverage to comply with code requirements?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be a yes. And finally, should the applicant provide the additional details requested for the site plan?
Okay.
Yes.
One more thought.
Go ahead, go right ahead.
As we were talking about hazardous materials, I want to see what the board thinks of this. You had said that the potentially hazardous materials that are used for finishing are done by subcontractors away from this site.
Correct.
will you kind of include a discussion of that in your narrative about hazardous
Absolutely.
materials? Because I think it's important to know that that's not going to somehow stop being subcontracted and come back to this site at some point later down the line.
That makes sense, and I am now prepared to talk about that in great detail, so I'm ready to.
You're an expert. We'll give you a chance to shine, so to speak. It's too easy, sorry.
Prefer the tarnished finish, that's water-based.
I'm sorry?
The tarnished finish is water-based.
Very good.
Yeah.
Isn't it great you become an expert in these things that you never even knew?
The best thing about the practice of law.
Yeah, it is. It's the most fun. So, okay, anything else for us?
No.
Folks,
No.
see you next time.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay. I see, did I see Mr. Frank here, or is it,
He was here.
Sam, you guys are pretty low volume. I'm wondering if Matt could turn up the,
how's
Lou, are
this?
you, is it quiet for you too, Lou?
No, it's actually, it's very loud for me.
Huh.
Yeah.
Turn up your
Turn up,
speakers, Randy.
go up to 11,
tried.
Randy.
Well, I tried to, maybe more volume settings. It's all the way up.
There's Mr. Frank. Let's let Mr. Frank come and go. Is that all right with you?
So, yes, but I don't, do you want to come up here, or I think he'd
How do you
rather
wanna do it?
just be a fly on the wall, but I won't.
Oh, that's what I was wondering, because I hadn't been under the impression that Tina was covering this one, so,
He
and-
likes to work so much.
I know.
Thank you for that commitment to the town.
Well, what? Well, no, seriously, who, between?
no, that's fine.
You want to do it, Brian? Sure. You're on.
The answer is yes.
Okay, and Gardner's Marina, I'm looking around. Okay, there. See, it's these poles. Okay. So, Randy, just so you know, we're gonna do Gardner's Marina next. All right?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Who's gonna look at- 'cause we're going out of order.
That's a song.
I just opened this.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Brian Frank from the Planning Department, here,
Welcome.
available unexpectedly. I didn't think I was going to be here, and Tina had agreed to cover for me, but as it turned out, here I am.
She can ride the bench for one of these. It's all yours.
Okay, so this is the Gardner's Marina application. This was last discussed by the board on October 4th when there was a public hearing for the application. As you may be aware, the application is to reconstruct and enlarge a clubhouse that's located in the southeast corner of the property. It also involves the construction of a storage building in the northeast corner of the property that requires the I would call it clearing, but I think that's, there's some limited accuracy there because the vegetation that's going to be removed in this area is largely a non-native and somewhat noxious tree heaven. It's actually a bigger problem than it had been in the past because it's a host species for the spotted lanternfly, which is one of our newest invasive species. That meets the 100-foot wetland setback. The application also includes the enlargement of the boat basin in this area here. I believe the square footage is a little over 4,100 square feet within a 25 by 166 area to increase the space within the marina without increasing the number of slips. The application also includes the reconstruction and raising an elevation of a portion of the bulkheading on the property by 18 inches. And I think that that's the application in a nutshell. You had discussed this over the summer and issued a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA. This wrap-up memo includes a summary of the project, and some recommended project conditions which were included in the EAF. This application has been reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Natural Resources Special Permit has been issued for the activities that are in the board's jurisdiction. And if there are any questions that the board has, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Terrific.
An owner is here on behalf of the application too, if you have questions that are more geared towards the applicant.
Okay.
Brian?
Yep.
Brian?
Yeah, Randy.
Good evening.
A question about the trustees. Did both of these 3 Mile Harbor applications, of course, involve bottom land? Do you think, or did they get trustee review, or do they need it?
I'm fairly confident about this, but I've worked on this marina before in other applications, and this boat basin is not part of the trustees' bottomlands. It's considered the excavation of private bottomlands. If there were activities that were proposed beyond the mouth of the boat basin, I believe it would need trustee permit approval, but I'm fairly confident that this application does not require approval from the East Hampton trustees. I don't like to speak for them because I don't work directly for them, but I'm reasonably confident that that's the case.
Okay. Be the same with Shagwon too, then? Maybe? We'll deal with that later.
Let's hold off until we're there. I know.
Okay.
I know you're chomping at the bit because you got that one too. So you're all over 3 Mile Harbor today.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Nancy, does the applicant, we've closed the public hearing on this. Does the applicant speak again at this point?
Only if you choose to allow them. Normally, they wouldn't.
If we want you, we'll let you know. Okay. All right, Randy, why don't you take over on this conversation as well?
Okay. Yeah, let me get this. You can hear me. I think we're pretty much ready to go. I had that question of trustees. I think with both of these and our other waterfront applications, and I think the planning department suggests this too, that it's a good idea for us to get information about, in the questions, the planning department, we're planning for 2-foot vertical separation above mean high water for basement and dry wells. And I'm not sure exactly about I think the septic, we want 3. But I know when I was doing this privately, even in places like Georgia Pond, when the water in the harbor rises, the groundwater, and especially close by the harbor, rises with it. So you have this situation where there's a storm tide or a very high tide, the groundwater will rise up maybe several feet. So I guess the question is the design does it take this into account? I think it's more really on Shagwon that I was concerned about, because this one's pretty far along, but it's in the applicant's best interest to try to, with sea level rise and storms, et cetera, and flooding in these coastal areas, to design perhaps above what is in the codes, because the codes are a little old, frankly, so that we don't end up with dry wells or basements in the groundwater table. But I think other than that, I think this one's pretty well ready to go, and that Brian did a good job with the conditions.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
if I could add something, Member Parsons, I think you have a point about Georgia Pond because the fluctuation in the groundwater table there is unusually dramatic because of, there's a lot of hydraulic head. It's a big watershed. It drains down from the north. And when that inlet is closed, the groundwater table can rise by as much as 7 feet. I don't think that is the case at least in this area of 3 Mile Harbor. I do recall in reviewing the building plans that the basement was designed more than 2 feet above the groundwater table. I couldn't swear to the dry wells, but I believe that's the case with them as well. The sanitary system was installed in 2020. That is in the ground, and the capacity of that system is adequate for the size of the building and the number of bathrooms that are in there. We had looked at that as part of the initial review earlier this year, but I think you make a valid point about Georgia.
Okay.
Michael, would you have something?
Georgia, they cut open twice a year to empty it out.
They open the
That
gut.
does drop the water table down, but when that inlet is closed, it really does, you know, it's a management issue out there on a number of different levels.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, all right. Does anybody else have any comments on this application?
No.
Okay.
It's ready.
All right, are the conditions of approval necessary or modifications to the proposed conditions necessary? Anybody?
They're good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Conditions are good.
We're all good? Okay, is the application ready for approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone say nay? Okay, in that case, see ya. Okay. All right. Okay, we'll move on now to 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing Modification. The applicant is here. And Lisa's not here. Tina is going to cover that one, right? Tina?
Excuse me?
You're covering 3 Mile Harbor Affordable? Okay, very good. Okay. Just one thing. Lou, this is yours, okay?
Yes, thank you, Sam.
Okay, thank you.
Just going to bring the property up on the aerial. Just give me a moment, please. Okay. Two lots right here. I just flashed. This is the 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing application. This is an application for a site plan modification. The original application was approved in October 2021 for a 50-unit affordable housing complex. There's going to be 50 dwelling units in 5 residential buildings, a community building, and other site features, between structures, drainage, sewage treatment plant, walkways, playground. So I'm just bringing up the site plan now. The application requests a modification to several aspects of the approved site plan, which we've given a general list, and the applicants had submitted a summary that was more detailed, but this is the overview. So there's fencing being added, walkways being removed, bus stop, which is here, having a revised layout. They are adding retaining walls between some of the buildings and adjusting the grades. They're providing additional drainage structures, including swales, retention areas, berms, underground structures, and adjusting the landscaping and irrigation to accommodate all the changes. So this is the proposed site plan now. So I'm just going to kind of flash this compared to the original approval. So as you can see, they've removed some features from this central lawn area, including the barbecue, the playgrounds, which wasn't mentioned in the modification request, but we noticed was a change between the approved version of the plan and the plan submitted now with the playground located here. And some of the other changes are hard to see, and that's why for if there are future modifications, we would ask for, hatching or colors or plan callouts, just to show us where everything is, because it takes a long time to locate every distinct change. In general, the applicants noted that the proposed modifications are driven by the need to respond to comments from different authorities and agencies, including the Suffolk County Water Authority, PSEG, and the Fire Marshal, as well as extraordinary rain events that occurred several weeks ago in the town. The additional drainage structures in particular, we believe are proposed mostly to protect Building 1 from flooding. It's hard to see on this aerial, on this site plan, but this, as you guys all know the site, I'm sure, there's a significant grade change from this end of the site. It's the top of the hill, and it's a steep incline down. So it does make sense that drainage and grading are primary concerns. With respect to the issues covered in the memo, we noted the change to the playground. We couldn't find approval for this change, so I think this is before the planning board at this time. And again, it was here, now it's there, and there's other features removed from the lawn area. The lighting plan has been changed. We did not note any changes that are not consistent with the planning board policy, so we don't see any issues there. Regarding the landscaping plan, the total landscaped area was not modified, but we did note actually prior, after this memo was issued in response to a public comment, that an invasive species was included in the landscape plan. So although that's not mentioned here, we do want to ask the applicants to revise, to remove that. That's Chinese barberry. Japanese barberry is a known invasive species on the state do not plant list. And generally all barberry species are considered to be somewhat invasive. Chinese barberry is emerging as a problem, so we do want that updated. There's also been a modification to the driveway to widen it 2 feet in respect of fire marshal comments. And we also noted here that some additional approvals may be necessary, including ARB, which has jurisdiction for walls and fences, and overall aesthetics on the site. So the changing of the features, we believe, triggers their review. And the stormwater prevention, SPPP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, which would be filed with DEC, likely also needs to be modified to reflect the changes to the drainage. So in conclusion, generally, we feel the site changes meet good planning principles and standards. And there are a few things that we want to say need to happen, however, before final approval of the board. One, obviously, the board needs to agree that the site's still with their original approval. 2, we have referred this to the town engineering consultant to double check the drainage. And if the town engineer has any comments that would change any of the site features other than like the design of the drainage structures, they would definitely need to be reviewed by the board. And ARB, we suggest, is another condition of approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the applicant wish to be heard?
Good evening. I'm Katie Casey from the East Hampton Housing Authority. I was not aware that Japanese barberry was on that. I assume that's on the southern border with the Bistrian Pit. There was a comment from the planning board at one point that should be landscaped to discourage traffic from going down that steep slope.
Yeah.
We'll find another, we certainly don't want to plant any invasive species. We'll find an appropriate planting for that area, and I'll talk to Natural Resources for any suggestions on that. So the playground is no longer, sorry, that wasn't bubbled out. There have been many adjustments. The goal was to get approval for the retaining wall parallel to building number 1 upgrade. On September 28th, we had 7 inches of rain, and it came at the worst time for the property because it was denuded. But it brought to light future events are going to happen. It is coming. So that's the major change with that retaining wall. east of Building 1. The central green is there's too much going on there, particularly also because there's added drainage subterraneous. So the playground, the spot for the playground over by the bus stop, over by the walking path, it's more appropriate there instead of in the center of the site. Those are the two goals really, is to enhance the water management, stormwater runoff handling, and have the playground in an appropriate spot.
Okay. All right. I'm sure we'll come back to you with questions. Okay. Lou?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I don't play golf, but I think they call it a mulligan. I think we're getting a mulligan here, which I'm glad for, because it's obvious that, the original plans, especially with regard to proper drainage, had a lot of flaws. So it's kind of disconcerting that we had to have major rainfalls. I think there were at least two very heavy rains that pointed out some of these drainage flaws that were in the original plan. But, having said that, it's not, it's not totally the fault of the original plan. It just, unfortunately, we had unexpected and unusual rainfalls, and the drainage pipes weren't fully in the ground yet, so that didn't help. And of course, the property was denuded, it wasn't vegetated yet. So that's not going to be the case once the project is completed. But again, all of these changes are being sort of mandated by certain authorities and agencies, which they deem it necessary. So I think it's important that it's done. And I'm also glad that we're also going to get an outside engineering review to make sure that this time we've got everything right. So I think all of these changes are good. I think they've improved the project, and I'm glad that we have a chance to implement them. Thank God that we didn't go through with the project and find out about all these flaws later on. So, I'm glad we're going to be moving forward with the proposed changes.
Yeah, I share your appreciation for having the outside engineer give us the thumbs up on it. The only question I have, and it's, was there any other thoughts about where that playground could go other than next to the bus stop? Is that?
This plan doesn't show the topography. The playground, it's pretty steep here, the slope. The site is relatively level, and then Building 1 is down about 8 feet, I think. The playground, where it's situated here, is 30 feet above 3 Mile Harbor. So in about 400 feet, you go up 30 feet. Where the roadway is, it's quite sloping. So the playground in 3D is sort of below and behind the bus stop.
Okay. And the distance, because before it was relatively close to the houses, and now it's going to be a bit of a walk for parents, I imagine, of young children going to and from the playground. That's why I'm just wondering, is it the optimum place from a parent's point of view? But that's the only wonder I had about it. I don't know if anybody else shares that as a concern, but
I had the same thought. I certainly wouldn't dig my heels in over that, but the playground seemed nice in the courtyard. I understand if that's not possible, but I also was going to bring that up just to make sure that your team has thought it through, and that's the best place that you think it could go.
Now that on this plan, there is, that retaining wall comes into the central green quite a bit, and in my opinion, at least, where the playground is now, there's a long walking path, and we're searching for equipment, exercise equipment, like one of those circuits that's for teens and adults, and to place that over by the playground where it is now. We have room to do that there. So I think that's a complementing use.
What did you say? I didn't hear circuits?
Yeah, an exercise.
You know, like
They're
you go
individual pieces.
10 feet and then it's like
Jumping jack.
item number 1, and then you go another 10 feet and item number 2, and.
I got you.
Yeah, we have not
Those who
yet.
exercise.
We
I don't exercise.
Don't count me as one.
We haven't selected the equipment yet, but we did feel that this was a more appropriate place for it. Building 1, incidentally, is also the community room. It is also where the laundry is. It's where the office is. It's where the mailboxes are. So most of the activity happens at this end of the site and not the high side, the east side. That's the quiet side.
Can I just piggyback, because you guys mentioned safety earlier, and I think that was the other,
Yeah.
because it's right next to the road, right? So is there going to be a substantial fence? I just don't want to move on if we're talking about this before mentioning that point.
Fence, you said?
Yeah, is there a substantial fence or, I don't
There's a
know.
guardrail, there's a crosswalk, there's a guardrail, there's an ADA ramp from the bus stop to the playground, and the meandering path that goes down to 3 Mile Harbor is an ADA grade.
Right, but this is like the main roadway, so that was kind of.
Yeah, the concern is the playground itself, if,
It would have a fence around it and one entrance on the east side of the playground. So you have to go down the ramp, down into the playground area.
Anybody else?
As a parent,
As a parent, I'm waiting for.
as a parent who appreciates peace and quiet, further away from the residences is all fine with me.
Oh, there is that.
That's why I say the east side is the quiet side. It's going to be quiet on the back side.
The only other thing I would say is, obviously drainage has been an issue here, and I understand that we've had some very serious rains. I would like to see the engineer's comments ourselves, because they don't really give approvals themselves, and so we don't know what those comments are going to say. I don't anticipate any problems whatsoever, but I do think that when those comments come in, I think one final pass before this board, which shouldn't add any extra time, just to make sure there's no gray area there.
So are you suggesting that we hold off on any of these? It's all or nothing? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm not trying to suggest that, but I think that the way it was worded in the memo, or the way we were talking about it, is you have to comply with those comments, but that would be atypical for us, because engineers don't typically say, well, they don't always say just yes or no. There might be some more detail to those comments. And so if they said something that was not black and white, we might want to interpret that, or, so no, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I don't know how best to do that. Maybe I would defer to Nancy on this. I just think that ultimately we should have those comments in our hands before we approve that part of the project. I want to see this go through. I don't have any problems. I understand that, things change in the process of construction. So certainly wouldn't want to delay you, but it seems appropriate to me that this board sees the engineer's comments to make sure that,
Yeah, I agree with that. Drainage is something generally we consider, and it should, I suspect that the engineer, we would like to be able to see what the engineer says and give us a shot at it.
And my understanding was that the engineer was maybe even going to have those comments as soon as, like, today. Am I wrong about that, or?
Yeah, he was supposed to, but.
So I basically, perhaps I don't even need to say this, because the comments are probably in by the time there's a resolution. And if that's the case, there's nothing more to discuss. And I anticipate that'll be the case, but especially because there was a problem, there are steep slopes here. It just seems that is the appropriate It's not like conditioning DEC approval or something who has their own approval process. Our engineer doesn't. And so there might be something in those comments that, we need to think about.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Can we meet next week or
No, we're not on next week, are we?
The 15th is the next meeting.
15th, okay.
Well, I would hope that between now and the 15th, we receive those comments and the point becomes moot.
Yeah, because it'll just be along with we'll have a resolution? Is there a resolution going to follow?
I guess we should look at the comments first, right, is what I'm hearing.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be clear, though, I don't anticipate I don't think there's going to need to be discussion there. If it turned out that there was, then, perhaps we'd have to amend that resolution, but I wouldn't want to, I'm not saying we wait to see those comments and then have the resolution in the next meeting, because we should know, I think, if there's anything there or not, pretty quickly when they come in.
If the resolution, I mean, look, one way or the other, you have to wait for a resolution for the next meeting anyway. So let's see what the comments are, and I suspect it won't derail it, but the resolution, but if it does, if there is something that is of concern or should be of concern to the board, we should have a chance to consider it.
So
The planning department will evaluate that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there'd be no change in the timeline, because the way it's worded now is you need to comply with those comments. So
Yeah, right, because the worst thing
if
would
there's
be.
something in those comments that you can't comply with, the resolution
You're
wouldn't
not
do much
going to
for
be a
you.
resolution anyway, or.
So I'm certainly not suggesting that we hold off on I think we should proceed exactly as we are going to, with the caveat of, I would like to see those comments and make sure that this board reviews them after the planning department, does, and we just make sure of that, as opposed to just saying, yeah, do what they say, because I don't think it's always black and white with.
And it would be the only part of the application that we'd be discussing would be the comments from the engineer. And we do that very often, where we'll have a discussion and then a resolution at the same meeting. So that's what we would.
I don't think there will be much discussion. I just think it's appropriate
But
that
it is
we.
appropriate, it is.
So
Are we going to get the resolution ready for the 15th?
Yes.
That'll be the idea. That'll be the idea. So unless there's a real curveball in the engineer's report, we'll hear about the engineer's report. And again, I don't want to predict how it's going to go, but and at that point, assuming that there are no issues that are raised, we'll have a resolution.
Yeah, and to be clear, if there was a curveball, it would already change the
Yeah,
application.
right. You wouldn't be
The
able to
only
have a
difference
resolution.
is that I want to say proactively
That this
that I would
board-
like to be involved, I would like to see those things and
And
hear the planning department's opinion on them. I don't think it changes anything about the timeline whatsoever, assuming the comments are positive.
It's about this board, meeting its responsibilities. And
No,
so-
I completely understand that. So when you say engineer, you're talking about the town engineer. The town needs to do its own engineering review.
Yes.
You're not referring to R&M, our engineer.
Yes.
So,
The town is going to review your engineering plans, and they were going to give comments, probably, saying this is okay, or this needs to be changed, or whatever. The plan of action was going to be that you need to comply with those comments. I'm suggesting that we ought to have the planning department, show us those comments, and then we also look at them. So there's no real difference there at all. But yes, we're having an outside engineer look at your plans just to make sure that they agree that everything was done properly.
okay. The two pending items, if I'm reading this correctly, is the engineer comments and if we need to go to ARB for, I believe it was specifically the fence around the.
I think you will need to go for ARB, yeah, independently. I'm totally comfortable in that case saying ARB approval is a condition of approval because they naturally do that process themselves. The engineer doesn't.
In one way or the other, you're going to need the ARB approval.
So yeah, you should submit your application to ARB as soon as possible. Again, not anticipating problems there, but it's something I think you have to do technically.
You're going to need it.
The fence around the playground isn't as urgent. The retaining wall in between buildings 5 and 2 is somewhat, time is of the essence there because it requires pouring concrete. And it is stormwater
But I think,
handling, and the SWIP, the Stormwater Protection Plan, which was designed, I believe, to 3 inches, which is the standard, it was approved. It was, I don't know that the original SWIP was flawed. It just did not contemplate a 7-inch event, which we are now doing, because that's the right thing.
which kudos to you. I mean, to go above and beyond to control your runoff beyond what is required by the code. I think in the case of the ARB, though, it's not up to us. If you build a fence without their approval, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you'll get a permit for it. So you should, that's out of our hands. That will be a condition, I think, for us. And but yeah, you should get that application in soon, I think.
And the SWIP was approved by DEC, right? I mean, you submitted and they
Yeah.
do like a self-cert process, not,
Yeah,
the
that's an
town never
outside,
looked at
yeah.
the SWIP, from what I understand on it.
Yep, that is a separate submission.
Yeah, okay. Just to clarify.
All right, do we need, I guess we don't really need, do we need the questions at this point, you think?
No, I think to sum up, if the town engineer comments will be presented at the next meeting. If they've changed the site plan, we were always going to need to discuss it. And
Right.
if they're really technical specifications that don't change any above ground structures, I think that, the resolution will reflect that.
Does anyone have anything else? Sharon, Michael,
No,
Randy?
all good.
Anybody?
Good,
Lou, we're good?
we're good, Sam.
Thank you. Okay, so see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, now we move on to the Shagwan Marina preliminary. And for those of you watching at home, this is a Shagwan that is not in Montauk. Speaking of curveballs. Okay, we'll hear from, Randy, this is yours. We'll hear from Tina, then we'll hear from the applicant, and then Randy will lead us in our discussion. So go ahead, Tina.
Okay. So this is a preliminary site plan review for the Shagwan Marina. The memo was written by Daniel Gross in the planning department. I'm presenting it for him. I'm just showing the location of the site right now. It's located in Springs on 3 Mile Harbor, Hog Creek Road. Here's 3 Mile Harbor right here. So now I'll just show, I guess, the survey to start. The preliminary site plan application is to facilitate the construction of a new pool, hot tub, interior renovation of an existing 2-story structure, and the relocation of the site access at Shagwan Marina. The parcel is zoned waterfront, WF, and is in the harbor protection overlay, also located in the LWRP, the local waterfront revitalization program area. It's a site that has several environmental considerations, obviously with its waterfront location. It's in a New York State significant coastal fish and wildlife habitat within the Peconic Estuary Critical Environmental Area and the East Hampton Scenic Area of statewide significance. So the proposed work is within 150 feet of wetlands with a bulkheaded location. That's the wetland boundary. So all this work is occurring within jurisdiction of natural resources special permit, which would have to be reviewed by the zoning board of appeals. And I'll go into the specific issues in the memo now. The first just introductory comment I want to make is that as a preliminary site plan review, it's important for the board to consider the overall concept, layout. This is to provide the applicant with this one-time review to guide their continued planning on the site. So overview of what's going on is important. Regarding SECRA, upon formal submission, we believe the project's type 2. We've listed the code reference there. Regarding zoning setbacks and the NRSP requirement, there was a previous iteration of this proposal submitted where the pool was orientated differently and would have needed a setback from the wetlands. As you folks know, setbacks are required for new structures within 100 feet of the wetlands. This plan has been revised to avoid the setback, it's not labeled here, but to avoid the 100-foot. And therefore, that is no longer required with this. So the structures, including the swimming pool, spa, and deck, have been moved out of the wetland setback zone. The one remaining structure that we believe would need a variance is likely the stone walkway here, because it still encroaches into the 100-foot. There it is labeled. And we do believe also that a side yard setback variance would be required. There's a residential zone adjacent to here, and setbacks are doubled when you're adjacent to those. But otherwise, most of the new structures are out of the wetland setback. The parking shown here is existing. We don't believe any changes are being made there. So they have avoided the need for most variances with the change to the concept. With respect to the pool, there are special pool requirements in the HPOD. These require compliance for items like minimizing chlorine, confirmation that the bottom of the swimming pool is 2 feet above groundwater, and that all the management of backwash is in accordance with town standards. Suffolk County Department of Health Services also has requirements for public pools that have higher disinfection requirements. So we just mentioned that here to be sure the applicants swear they're going to need, and planning board's going to want to see that compliance with that has occurred. One item that we did kind of mention a few times, and I'll just mention it now so I don't have to talk about it again, is the separation between the bottom of the swimming pool and the groundwater table. That is supposed to be a minimum of 2 feet, which is shown on the plan, but the soil and the groundwater borings that were provided are older. And as we were talking about before, we feel it's important for those analyses to be a little more up to date, and that some assurance provided that high tide conditions are taken into account to ensure that the standard's going to be met with respect to the separation. There's a profile, I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it now, so I'm just going to leave this here. Moving on, regarding clearing regulations and landscaping. So the site is 100% cleared of natural vegetation per the town's records. So it is cleared well over what would be permitted today. The allowable would be about 17,000 square feet, and it's at almost 54,000 square feet. Despite that cleared status, the applicant has provided some landscaping with native species that would populate areas of the site with a mix of native grasses and shrubs, but would leave some lawn area. It looks like the lawn area is larger than it was during the first iteration. And we would just, emphasize that we encourage vegetating the site wherever possible and maximizing landscaping with native vegetation. I covered in the earlier description that we do believe some variances are still required associated with this, including the walkway and side yard. So that's the requirements for CBA. Regarding the proposed uses and renovations, so in the previous submission, the applicant had explained what was driving the proposed improvements was really solely the use of the existing marina members. So we would like, with the formal submission, to have more detail, precisely how that will change the activities on the site, and we listed some information we think is appropriate to be provided. Regarding parking, the applicant has revised the site parking to propose gravel parking area with 2 ADA spaces, and is providing additional parking with the proposal. Currently, there's 11 spaces, and they're raising the total number of parking spaces to approximately 44. The site's current usage would require 52 spaces in accordance with town code, but they do have on their CO 44 spaces. So while they're not compliant with this proposal, they are substantially reducing the gap of what the parking should be and what they're providing. With respect to site access and internal navigation, the proposed driveway relocation is slightly altered. You can see it here. The driveway is kind of central to the site now, and they've moved it to the south. We do need to show the 20-foot wide emergency access to the on-site buildings, and the fire marshal will have to approve that. Regarding the building renovations, there's an existing 2-story building that is going to be subject to interior renovations to provide a dry snack bar and a member lounge. There was no indication about exterior changes, and we just want to confirm whether or not those are proposed. Side yard. Regarding stormwater drainage, we did make comments on the first submission regarding that we did need additional information, and much of that was provided, which is great. Upon formal submission, the town engineer, the town consulting engineer would be required to review that. The one thing that we wanted to emphasize is that if grades are being changed, we do want to see that clearly on the plan, and that we noted that there are leaching structures proposed fairly close to the harbor. Generally, we'd like to see the setback between those structures and water resources maximized. So we asked the applicants if there are perhaps better places to place those structures. This isn't an area that is within the town's MS4. So if the site disturbance is over an acre, they will need a stormwater pollution prevention plan to be filed with the DEC. And the last comment about stormwater is that there are existing catch basins here on the site in pink. We just want to confirm what the current operation of those features are, and if their point source discharges, their speed use permit status. Regarding the sanitary system, regarding the formal, upon formal submission, the applicant should provide information on the existing capacity of the on-site system, confirm it's in a state of good repair, and provide the calculations that demonstrate the additional flow from the snack bar and member lounge can be accommodated. We're not sure if this is a new system or an older system, so we'd like that clarified. Based on some rough calculations, we did the site is in groundwater zone 4, which has a lower allowable density flow, right? It's 300 gallons per acre as opposed to 600. So we do want to make sure that they are below the allowed flow that would be resulting within that smaller, with that smaller flow allowed. We talked about landscaping already. Regarding lighting, we made some detailed comments, so I think we don't have to talk about those a lot. It was very kind of difficult to read the plot. It was good information, but so we just like to have them work on how it's shown so we can be sure we can read it. And just, remind the applicant that light spill is not permitted at the property lines, so that should be addressed as possible. We've listed other approvals that are going to be required, fire prevention, ARB, Suffolk County Health, ZBA, DEC. Obviously, this would be tidal wetlands. They would need a DEC permit or notice of non-jurisdiction. And then to facilitate the move of the curb cut, we're going to need the highway department. I believe this is a town road, although we did have a little trouble confirming that. So in conclusion, the applicants reconfigured the plan to avoid the wetland setback variance for the pool, which is appropriate, but the proposed project still requires relief from ZBA, and upon formal submission, the applicant should consider the stormwater comments, comply with the fire marshal requirements, confirm the pool is situated appropriately with respect to the groundwater elevation, and update the lighting and landscaping as appropriate. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that very thorough memo on this very wide-ranging application. Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Sam, members of the board. Eric Brown from Ackerman Partners for the applicant this evening. I'm joined by Rich Warren of InterScience Research Associates, Steve Naroda from Arias. Most of the proposed improvements here, actually all of the proposed improvements are on the exterior of the existing structure. So Steve's office has spearheaded the design of most of those. And I also have Jarrett Resnick, who represents the marina operator. I just want to note we are, as has been noted, we're in front of you tonight for preliminary site plan. So we come to you in the spirit of that. Of that provision of the code. We'd like to find out what your general overview is with respect to the project. I want to thank Tina and her staff for a very thorough memo. Again, because we're in preliminary site plan, the inclination would be that if the applicant does decide to proceed with full site plan, that we would use the last memo as the basis for making that initial filing for formal site plan approval as comprehensive as possible, and Tina and her staff have certainly done a good job in laying a trail for us to follow there. So in the event that we decide to proceed, we certainly would follow the recommendations in the memo and provide that information. I think I just have a couple of more comments. I realize we're the last on your agenda and we are preliminary site plan, so I'll try not to drone on too long. I think it's important to note that, as Tina mentioned, this is a subordinate amenity to an existing marina. The operation of that marina will not expand. It will not change. There are no new slips. The people that will be utilizing this would be the same people that would be utilizing any of there aren't a lot of amenities there now, but they would be the same, slip renters or slip holders that would be coming to the facility anyway. There is no inclination to draw anyone from the outside community to sort of increase the number of people that would be using the site. I think it's important to note that we have eliminated the idea of any kind of a dry snack bar. Okay. Sorry. There will be no food service on the site, so we're taking that off the agenda. And in terms of the building itself, the building will remain the same. There is not going to be any increase in footprint. The uses which, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there a lounge in there now for the people for the? It's not active. It's not active. Okay, so the inclination would be to essentially have the use of that building track the existing use, which is a lounge area for members of patrons of the marina to come and get out of the sun, whether they're coming from their boat and coming in to sit down before they go somewhere else, or whether we're a swimming pool to be approved for them to come in out of the sun. That would be there. There would be some office space for the marina management, which is what's in there now, and there would be some storage. Some of you may remember a number of years ago, the previous owner had a stand-up paddleboard person in there. That is not something we're continuing. I don't know very much about what the relationship was with that, whether it was a sublease, and I don't have any information about the interaction with that between the paddle company and the town in terms of introducing a new use to the site, whether or not that was considered. But that entity is no longer a tenant. So, and we're not planning on doing anything, bringing anybody else in. The swimming pool setbacks, Nancy and Tina, I could not find any guidance on the application of residential swimming pool setbacks to a property that's in waterfront, quasi-commercial. The inclination here would be we would like to eliminate the need for a side yard variance. I've asked Joe Palermo, but I don't know if you guys have any, if you have a citation or any memos or guidance on that you could either point us to or give us.
Yeah, I'd have to check.
Yeah, that's fine. But in any case, in the event that the current configuration does in fact run afoul of the setbacks, we would obviously change the side yard setback so that it was conforming. I think we can also deal with the the walkway in the same way. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Food, building, pool. I think that's pretty much everything I have on my sort of global issues list. Rich, have I missed anything? Do you want to say anything?
And I didn't really intend to speak. The only thing I would note is that the building itself is actually pretty small. It's 506 square feet on each floor, so it's not a big building. And on the first floor, part of that 506 square feet are existing bathrooms that are used by the patrons of the marina. So the square footage keeps getting smaller and smaller, so it's not a big structure.
Okay. Now, well, as Mr. Brown pointed out, this is a preliminary. So what we'd like to do is give you a sense of what the whole board feels. Randy will start off the conversation, and then I'm going to go to Sharon and then Michael.
Just one thing, Sam, if I could. Randy had asked about the trustees. There's nothing that I'm aware of here that would trigger trustee jurisdiction, but we're happy to, have them take a look at it.
Okay. Well, I know he brought that up in the earlier marina, but yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So as I was saying, we'll hear from Randy first, then we'll go around the table, starting with Sharon, and Lou, you'll be the cleanup at the end of that. Okay. So Randy, you're on.
Yeah, I think Daniel Gross and Planning Department did a really good job of analyzing the project and all the implications. And really, if you just skip to the questions at the end for the board to consider, I think they're pretty much all yeses. They've kind of very well summarized what additional information. I was glad to hear from Eric that they'll probably redesign away from needing a variance on that side. It appears there is a residence over there. I know this isn't a residential zone, but it looks like we have a residential neighbor, so that the pool and the pool equipment could be an issue if there was a variance there. I don't believe there's any emergency generator proposed, but I just wanted to double check on that. I agreed with the department's suggestions that one area, especially that one area between the road and the buildings, if there's a possibility of that being landscaped with native vegetation, I see there's some covers in there. I'm trying to remember when I went to the site. That whole area might be elevated. And it might be the septic system and leaching. I don't know. I don't see the septic shown on this plan. But is that where it is?
That's where it is.
Eric, back there?
Yeah, Randy, you're exactly right. That's okay. Exactly right.
So I think one of the things the department asked for is, to see the septic layout on the site plan. Probably should see some elevations, because my recollection is that's there's fill in there to lift the septic system up. We probably want to see that. It would also affect how much planting can really be done in that area. But it all goes to the septic design, and the fact that the snack bar is out, I think, is a good move. It simplifies the application, isn't going to increase any health department requirement for flow. But generally, we've had this whole discussion about clearing in the waterfront zone and how it's still in the harbor protection overlay. It's what I mean, really, that there's a policy to try to limit clearing in these areas and to re-veg where they're over cleared. And I understand that that's maybe needs a code requirement as far as the waterfront zones are concerned. However, the use of lawns this close to the harbor, and lawns usually end up needing fertilizer, herbicides for crabgrass, and a lot of people now, if they have a lawn, they use pesticides for tick control, especially if people are going to be out on them, and also possibly irrigation. So I think that department's onto something there where it's possible to reduce the size of lawns and plant natives that won't need the irrigation and all the other things that go along with it. I don't know if you could, a question about the curb cut on the new access. I'm not completely clear if that is a new curb cut, and do we need Suffolk County Department of Public Works approval for that? I don't know if that was mentioned in the memo. And then if it is a curb cut, again, you'd have to see the topography of the site, but how would any stormwater coming from 3 Mile Harbor Road be handled that might come down into the site? I'm sure the board, well, I won't speak for the board, but I think we'd all love to see a new alternative low nitrogen system here. But I understand there's also not a lot of flow or sewage here either. The final thing I guess I would say is that I agree with the department about the drainage, the leaching rings there under the parking so close to the water, especially if we're only looking at a 2-foot separation. I don't know if you can are you using shallow rings there? Anything to keep stormwater from leaching into the harbor. Again, all the water quality stuff. So that's really what I got. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Sharon?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Randy makes all the important points when it comes to, the harbor overlay district and trying to minimize clearing. I mean, I think anywhere you can find a place to, put some vegetation would be a good idea. I'm not sure how that works with septic on the lawn. Hopefully, most people, you don't have to use pesticides and herbicides anymore. Hopefully, we can make sure that they don't, and maybe we can, I don't know if you can put a condition for that or not, but I don't think that's really necessary anymore. And good thing that they're getting rid of the setbacks. And, overall, I don't really have a problem. It's pretty tight space. I mean, it's a small marina, so I don't have a problem with the application. But the zoning board will scrutinize, the NRSP, and really it's going to land on them to make sure that they think it's environmentally sound. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, I think, and Randy mentioned all the rest of the things that I think you should look at.
Thank you. Michael?
Clover lawn, is that what you were thinking? You can make a clover lawn, you need very little maintenance for those lawns. Okay. I want to confirm the size of the pool. In the agenda, it says 1,100 square feet, but it says 45 by 18, which is 810. That's what it's going to be. And 5 feet, that's the... No diving? No. Okay. And your spa is going to be, I assume, heated by natural gas. Yeah. So what I would like to see, you're going to be using a lot more electricity on site, maybe solar panels, solar heats, and even a variable speed pool pump, an energy efficient pool pump, I think would be fantastic. That's all I got.
Great. Ian?
Yeah, I think that, as the applicant said, this memo would serve as a really good roadmap if you choose to go forward, and there's, will be tweaks along the way. I mean, the biggest concern I have is the pool. The pool feels odd to me, and especially as Randy pointed out, the groundwater issues and the level and the separations. You intend to meet those separations, and if you do, I wouldn't oppose it, but I would certainly want, as part of the process, if it goes forward, to make sure you do test holes right in that area and that we're very precise about it. And frankly, if we were to send comments to the ZBA, I wouldn't send positive comments. I might not say, recommend against it, but, I think that they would have to be very, very cautious as well with all the environmental issues involved. It seems like an odd, frankly, a little bit of an odd use, but if you meet setbacks, and you're not asking for anything that any exceptions to our code or variances that you ask for are granted, or NSRPs or whatever else, I could support the application. I do think not allowing food was a good idea, because frankly, I've talked to planners about this before, and since that conversation, I started to wonder conversations that have come up, such as who would use that, and is that attracting new people, because you are substandard in parking, even though you're providing way more than you currently have. So, yeah, when I first looked at this, it was like, whoa, I'm not sure that's a great idea, but I think if your test holes show that the groundwater works, and for septic drainage, and particularly the pool and spa, I could support it. Obviously, there will be many more details to work out in the formal part of the application. And as I said previously, I think that if you use this memo as a roadmap, you'd be doing well for yourselves.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah. First, a question. How many slips are there in this marina? 42, okay. Yeah, my colleagues have made some really great points, and I think, covered a lot of the bases, but I share Ian's puzzlement, maybe is the word, about the pool. I don't really quite get the pool for a, 42 slip marina, right? I think it is a bit of an odd use. I mean, the parking situation is a little substandard as it is. The last thing I think anyone wants here is for you or some future owner of this to turn this into a swim club. A pool is an expensive thing to put in, right? I mean, I'm just having difficulty. I'm not here to create a new business model for you, but it does seem very odd to me, the pool thing. I'm not loving it exactly. And I have the same concerns that Ian does about depth of groundwater, and yeah, the whole thing to me doesn't seem quite to make sense. So I'm going to leave it there.
I just have one question. Go ahead. The hours of operation for the pool, when is it going to close? Has that been determined, or? I only ask that because you have neighbors just north of you and kids in the pool. Again, I have 3 kids that make a lot of noise, so I'm very sensitive to that. So kids in the pool in the evening, it's going to travel all up north and into the neighborhood. So I'm just curious about hours of operation.
Yeah, sure. So I'm also the father of 3 children.
Podium, please.
Everybody, Jared Resnick, I'm president of the HPS Tiger Group. I'm also a father of 3. I'm very sensitive to noise and kids in the pool, and obviously we would look to limit the closure hours so that the neighbors are not disturbed. We'll certainly take that into consideration and come up with a reasonable time. We're fine with 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, something in that area where people wouldn't be disturbed going into the evening. That is not our intention to disturb the neighbors. It's to provide an amenity for the slip licensees, and we would certainly be very sensitive to the neighbors on that side of the marina. So, well taken point. We'd be happy to make it a condition on certain closure time that the board's comfortable with.
That'll be good. Let's hear from Lou, and then I'll give a couple of comments, and then we can.
While I'm up and I have the microphone, I'd like to commend you on a wonderful Spinal Tap reference earlier that I don't think everybody in the room got.
I got it.
Somehow, if you just say the number 11, sometimes lights go off. Or they get brighter. Lou, did you have anything on this?
Yeah, when I looked at the application, just a couple of things that, sort of prompted my concern. The first one was the clearance. I realized that the entire property is grandfathered to be cleared totally, the entire 54,000 square feet. And the code for this property would max out the clearance at 17,000 square feet. So that's pretty hefty overage, if you will, of the clearance that's in place there now. And now, the applicant, and this always bothers me with all applications where something is grandfathered in and the applicant is, and I don't know what the right term is, the proper term, but expanding the use, adding to the use, enhancing the use, however you want to define it. And it just doesn't seem right to me that that kind of enhancement or addition is allowed when something is grossly over what the code allows in some other areas, in this case, the clearance. So if anything, I would urge the applicant to try to, we talked about that lawn area in the front. To me, that's an extremely important facet of this application, the clearance. And any way that they can remediate that area certainly would make it easier for me to swallow and approve the application. The other thing that I was concerned about was the sanitary system. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in an HPOD area, don't you need a 4-foot separation for septic system? And if so, has that been determined that we have that in place?
For new systems, Lou.
For new systems is my understanding as well.
So aren't they putting in a new system?
No.
No? Yeah, see, that's another thing. I mean, so that's another thing that's not, up to snuff. And we're expected to approve all of these other enhancements that they're asking for. So those are my two top concerns: the sanitary system not having enough clearance, not having enough groundwater separation, and the clearance issue that I mentioned. So those are very, very important points to me. And, to allow those other items that they're asking for and to not at least, remediate these other two issues to a greater extent than has been proposed, a lot more than what has been proposed, doesn't sit well with me. That's all I have.
Oh, thank you, Lou. How many? There's 44 boat slips. Was that 42? And how many members would you say that the marina has?
Here we were at 80% capacity.
And you're saying that there's not going to be any growth, that this is intended to maintain? Is that something, yeah, if you want to take a couple of questions.
No, again, we're not looking to increase the number of slips, so.
Is that something you'd covenant to?
Yep.
You'd be willing to covenant on that? Because, so that we know going forward that it's not going to grow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Why a pool? I mean, everybody's kind of like, little skeptical, and especially a 5-foot deep pool.
Jump in when I'm wrong. Sam, I mean, Rich has pointed out while we're sitting here that this is an amenity that slip holders are beginning to, one of the amenities they're looking for in marinas, sort of just generally across the industry. There's a pool down at Duck Creek that's been there for some time. Star Island, right, has a pool, Rich. East Hampton Point has a pool. Now, in that case, that there's also a short-term residential aspect in the fact that East Hampton Point obviously has hotel rooms. You can stay there. The Montauk Lake Club has a swimming pool as well.
Sterling Harbor Marina has a...
Sterling Harbor Marina, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one. So I think, Sam, I think what is happening is that the supply of slips out here is not increasing. The demand for them, there's a great demand for them, and that affects the price. And then I think people are coming and saying, look, we want more things. We want something other than just a space in which to put our boat. We want other things there as well. And so I think is that fair?
Very accurate.
Okay, so that's really why, and the idea is not. I mean, they're not looking to, as I'd say, they don't want to start a swimming club or whatever, and that's why the pool is as shallow as it is because it's basically just you come in and cool off and do what you're going to do, and then go on with either back to the boat or out to wherever you're going to go next. That's
there could be no members of the marina who don't have a boat. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, for instance, if I'm just driving down the road one day in July and I say, "Oh, look, that looks like a really nice place. I think I'll go in." They're not going to let me in there. So it's going to be.
But you couldn't be a member.
But you couldn't join the club.
Well, I could rent a boat. I could come in and say, "Do you have a slip for my boat?" And if so, I'd like to put my boat in there. In which case, then I would be, But there's nothing. There's no format that would allow someone that isn't already, coming there. Yes.
If I could,
I just want to make sure that it's tied to the.
Interject, because maybe this might answer your question. Yeah. I know the word club was used. These are individual customers who are licensing their slips. It's not a club per se. This is a marina. And I think that may be
I don't mean to get too.
A dangerous word to.
I don't mean to get too deep into semantics, just making sure that the intention is only if you have a boat at the marina, you and your guests could use the pool.
Correct.
Right? You're not like offering this as a place people could come who otherwise wouldn't have a boat, right?
Absolutely not.
But Ian, to your point, it is permitted for people to charter boats and to have fishing charters out of the marina. I don't know exactly how that works. For example, if somebody has a boat there and they make it available for charters.
Yeah.
Do you have that? Is that something that you do?
Right now, we are not chartering any boats out of that marina.
How big is the biggest boat you use? You fit there?
I don't want to inaccurately answer the question. I don't have the answer.
There's some big boats in there. Maybe I'm thinking of you.
One more thing regarding the pool also. I mean, because the depth to groundwater, that's obviously important because, it's very sensitive. But also, I'd like to make sure we know how you're going to treat the chemicals and the other items that are required to operate a pool. Because, look, I'd hate to think a 55-gallon tank, tub of chlorine falls over on its side and into the water. We need to be mindful that pools are wonderful, but they also come with certain safety requirements.
I would say even more clearly than that, if you are to store chemicals on site, you would need to meet our groundwater protection standards. I'm assuming somebody else takes care of the pool and the chemicals aren't there, but I don't know.
And is it going to be like a gunite pool or a vinyl pool, or you made that?
Gunite.
Okay.
And obviously, to follow any and all regulations required to run the pool in the most efficient.
So you should include when you present the application, flesh that out as part of the narrative. Randy, you wanted to chime in there?
Well, I'm thinking about the flood zone. I don't remember maybe Tina knows if, because this is pre-existing, does it meet the first floor flood elevations for the, that's the A zone, that red is the, and
Building's out, Randy. It's in
the
the,
building's out. Okay. But, so it looks like they're expecting in the so-called 100-year flood that the water would go over the edge of the marina. I noticed they want to raise the edge of the bulkheading probably to prevent some of that, but I think we can assume that there's going to be times when the water of the harbor goes over the edge of the bulkhead onto the other parts of the property.
so Randy, there's no bulkhead elevation changes proposed here. That was.
Oh, that's the other one?
Yep, no, that's not here.
Okay. So here then,
Slow down 3 Mile a little bit north.
yeah.
We threw a lot of 3 Mile Harbor at you tonight. So.
Well, even more than the I don't know what the first floor elevation in the flood map is here, Tina. Do you see that?
11?
Oh, 11.
11.1?
Okay. And I don't know where the bulkhead is in terms of its elevation, but it might be helpful to see where do you hit 11 feet on this property? Because it looks like those dry wells under the parking lot are probably partially, at least, in the floodplain.
Okay.
All right. Well, those borings also, that's, don't minimize.
Yeah, the inclination would be obviously to address, to provide the topography and the bore, everything that's contained in Tina's department's memo.
All right, let's run through the questions, which I think you're basically going to hear a lot of yeses, but in case anybody wants to stop us and re-emphasize. Should the applicant protect 3 Mile Harbor from water quality impacts, demonstrate compliance with each element of section 255-3-75 with respect to pool design in the H-Pod, and consult with Suffolk County regarding pool treatment requirements?
Yes.
Is placement of the pool, spa, deck, expansion, ADA compliant ramp? Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said something. There is an ADA parking issue, which is significant. It's not the biggest issue ADA-wise that we've ever had, but it is an issue that when you come back, you're going to have to address, because ADA requirements is something that this board is very cognizant, and which we take great care to make sure that approved site plans comply with the ADA. So, and I know it's mentioned in Tina's memo with regard to the parking. So I meant to mention that before when I was speaking. So, is the placement of the pool, spa, deck expansion, ADA compliant ramp, and drainage structures within the wetland 150 setback acceptable? Around the table?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm a little wary about it.
Maybe, yeah.
That one you're going to have to flesh out, because, again, where you are. I'm sorry?
Zoning board, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's going to be the zoning board issue, but, something that you'll bring before us. So, bear it in mind. Should the applicant revise the survey to include the mean depth to groundwater in areas proposed for the swimming pool and catch basins?
Yes.
Yeah.
Should the applicant consider expansion of its landscaping plans to minimize lawn area where practical?
Yes.
And the I associate myself with what Lou said before. Should the applicant revise the site plan to address the comments made by the Office of Fire Marshal to accommodate ADA accessibility? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Should the applicant confirm the use of pool and spa facilities is only for marina members? And we've heard that, and you'll put that in the application. Should the applicant show the 20-foot wide emergency access on the plans?
Yes.
Yes. Should the applicant submit more detailed information as requested associated with stormwater drainage?
Yep.
Should the applicant submit a construction protocol providing more detail regarding appropriate erosion and sediment control measures? And yes?
Yes.
Should the applicant perform soil borings to confirm the depth of groundwater, including high tide conditions, and utilize these findings to ensure that the depth of the leaching structures and pool will maintain a minimum separation from groundwater elevation?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye, aye. Very good. Upon formal submission, should the applicant provide more detailed plans on interior and confirm whether there are potential exterior renovations? Yeah, and that should go without saying almost. Should the applicant submit more detailed information on the sanitary system and consult with Suffolk County to confirm an appropriate rate for the member lounge?
Yep.
That's okay. Should the applicant update and clarify comprehensive site lighting plans?
Yes.
And there you have it. So, thank you. We appreciate it. I should say, I've said this before when we've had these preliminaries, I think it's a very valuable thing for the applicants to come in and get a sense of where it should go. And it's especially useful since you do have a roadmap that is.
Thank you, Sam. We feel the same way. We like to utilize that when we can.
Thank you. Tina, you have something you want to add?
Eric, well, Sam, before they go, I just wondered if the applicant, I don't think we're talking about any condition or anything, but the applicant has considered putting in a alternative system. Lou raised it. It's good for business. It's good for the marina. It's good for the harbor. I just wondered if they have or would consider voluntarily putting in an IA system.
Yeah, Randy, I think it makes sense. One of the things is, as you're well aware, is it's a very tight site. So we're going to have to look at the sanitary design to see if we could fit that, if we could fit a system and make it work in there. But it's certainly something I'm happy to have the engineers, consider.
Generally, they're mandated.
Right,
This
I understand.
isn't necessarily one of those, but it certainly
Right, but it
is
would be,
something
we would look favorable.
we appreciate.
I understand.
Yeah.
And you, since it's not mandated, I think you can apply for the grant.
Okay.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. So we'll definitely take it into consideration and have the engineers look at it, and, if we can address it, we certainly will.
That'll be great. Tina, did you have one more thing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, because you asked before about the setbacks. No, it's no problem. So this is a residential zone, and in waterfront, the setbacks for the principal structures are doubled, and the accessory structures have the same setback as the principal structures. So it's actually the planning board that has the ability to waive. It's still a double setback, but it's not a ZBA variance. We can waive accessory, you can, not waive, you can waive accessory structure setbacks.
The
But they're
accessory
doubled,
structure.
because you're adjacent to a
right.
residential zone. So it's not a ZBA variance, but it is a planning board waiver, so there was
Right,
a miss.
you're right, I understand. I just couldn't find in the code.
So you look
or
in the table of dimensional regulations.
and it's in there,
that-
okay.
It's in the footnotes, because
good,
we make it
okay.
easy to find.
Well, no, that's okay. I love the footnotes. Everyone loves footnotes. Sam, footnotes are great, right? We all love footnotes.
I go to sleep every night reading them. So.
So it's a planning board issue.
Well, to be clear, I'm sorry to keep it going, but what would be, what structures are?
The accessory pool, the pool is an accessory structure, so because the setbacks are doubled, the pool would need a waiver from the planning board, is my assertion.
Which I don't
So
think.
that,
I think the inclination is we would like to avoid having.
Yeah, I think
We're trying
that
to
makes
minimize
the
the amount of
application much more
relief in,
difficult.
so, to the extent we can minimize it, as Sam has pointed, everyone has pointed out, since we're in, preliminary, we're kind of, there's a lot that needs to be done yet, but that's certainly something, as with the sanitary, we would certainly look at trying to avoid having to ask for, for that additional relief from you guys.
It would make it a lot easier if you didn't need to ask for
I
it.
understand. That's,
Eric, are you contemplating a backup generator anywhere, or is there one?
We haven't actually discussed that, Randy. I don't, I mean, I don't know that there's, in this type of a facility, that there's really a need.
Okay.
Great need for one. I mean, you know, it's a small building, the occupancy is, you know, I guess, you know, if the power went out, I'm not quite sure what the, you know, what the horrible thing would be until it came back on.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you again for coming out. Appreciate it, and we look forward to the application. Okay, I'm going to do three quick, well, we have 3 boards of reviews and then one
Extension.
motion for an extension.
Thanks, team.
I'll go and then you? How's that?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. First board of review is the request of Brooklyn Timber LLC, Isaac Toucet, for a building permit on the premises at 59 Gardner's Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-95-3-20. The undertaking is in the sum of $22,500. The work being done is to pave 1.5 inches of type 6 asphalt along Gardner's Lane, starting at President Street, continuing east for 475 linear feet to Park Street, and the other paving is width of 24 feet along Park Street, starting at Gardner's Lane, continuing south 197 feet. Pardon me. I've reviewed the board of review and I move for its approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. Next is the request of Cleaver Lopez for a building permit at 31 7th Street, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-76-7-15.5. The amount of the undertaking, $16,500. And again, the work being done is on 6th Street to repair existing asphalt pavement and pave 260 linear feet along 6th Street, starting at the intersection of Gardner Avenue and continuing south with a minimum of 1.5 inches of type 6 asphalt, 6F asphalt, including, here's what I was looking for, including the 50-foot diameter cul-de-sac as directed by the town engineer. And on 7th Street, repair the existing asphalt as necessary, starting at 155 feet from the intersection of Gardner Avenue and continuing along 7th Street for a distance of 30 feet. And pave 240 linear feet along 7th Street at the existing top course asphalt at the edge of the existing top course asphalt, approximately 155 feet from the intersection of Gardner Avenue. I've reviewed the board of review and move for its approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the last is the request of Sandra Kraskin, 5 Prospect Street, Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-77-6-14, undertaking in the sum of $22,500. And the work to be done is on Prospect Street, install pavement of 20 feet along Prospect Street, starting at the intersection of Harbor Avenue, continuing for 66 linear feet, as directed by the town engineer, and along Harbor Boulevard, a width of 24 feet, starting at the intersection of 3 Mile Harbor Road and continuing east, the distance of 525 linear feet beyond the intersection of Prospect Street, as directed by the town engineer. And I have reviewed the board of review and move for its approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You guys always do it, so.
Okay, leave me hanging. All right. Sharon, you've got field property?
Yeah. In the matter of the application of field property, section 2, lot line modification, tax map number 300-171-2-10, and 9.4 and 9.6. This is for an extension of time, and I've read this resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed, 7-0. Okay, we have no meeting next week. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. So we will look forward to seeing you all then. And if I can get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.